Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see some familiar names and faces coming in. I see Sammy out there and Nora have joined us. It's good to have you guys here. Sometimes I imagine us meeting in person and having an in-person group someday. So you never know. And look, I even see Ray. Ray has joined us from the road. He's my second favorite Navajo, and I'm so glad he's here.
Why does he sit still like that?
Yeah, that's one of those Navajo skills. They remain completely motionless. And I see Marshall's come in too. Marshall, I know you're on the road as well. Hopefully your signal will hold out. I've got to get you added to this to our panel list too. I thought I had you on there, but I'll get that taken care of. Oop. I won't be able to add you on that list yet, Marshall. It won't let me add it right now. But good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Gosh, it's good to see you. I have disabled the weight room, so folks should be able to join us as we are in progress here. Deborah, thanks for coming in and joining us again. Appreciate your patronage and continued support and attendance. I was telling a couple of the panelists before we came on, now that most of the pandemic restrictions have been lifted, it's tough to gather folks on a Friday afternoon, more so than it was a couple of years ago. So I really do appreciate everyone taking the time to hit the pause button and join us. Hopefully you can hang around with us for these next couple of hours, but I know if you have to step off, we understand. Great to see everyone. I just want to welcome you all to this session 3 of our Summer Living series. The theme or title for today's session is "The Stories Are in the Music," and we're gonna talk about summer-related stories, songs, music that are connected to different native traditions and culture from around the country. So we've got a fairly good representation here on our panel. There are a few that weren't able to join us today, but we'll look for them perhaps in session 4. But I want to welcome everyone. The one person I don't have on here is, I don't think I added him on to session 3 yet, but is Marshall Bennett. He is Rosebud Lakota, and he joins us from. Are you still down in Arizona, Marshall? Is that yes? I can keep track of you. That's pretty good. It's great to see everyone. I just have a few introductory slides to go through, and then I'm going to turn the floor over to my colleague and friend, Mr. Doug Widow, to get us started off in a good way. Welcome everyone to session 3 of Summer Living series. I know most of you are aware that this event is brought to you by the National American Indian Alaska Native ATTC. We are part of a larger national network made up of 10 regional centers, a national Hispanic and Latinx center, as well as a national coordinating office located at the University of Missouri. I'm broadcasting to you live from the University of Iowa campus. That is where our center is located in Iowa City. And we are sitting in mid-80s here today. It's very comfortable, and the sun is shining, so we're in good shape here. This project is funded and supported by SAMHSA. The content is developed by the presenters, and the opinions and information expressed and shared today do not necessarily reflect the views of SAMHSA, HHS, or the National American Indian Alaska Native ATTC. We're not providing any links to, we are recording this, but we don't have any slides per se that we're going to be sharing. I know Dave Natsaway has a couple of YouTube links that we can certainly share, or at least let you know where he found them. We're going to try and share those today. And we are, I believe, able to offer CEUs for today's event. I'm going to double check that and make sure. I think we could defend having some learning objectives for today's session. So when we reach out to you following this event via email, you can request CEUs at that time, and you'll also have a link to the recording of today's event. And lastly, we'll ask that you consider filling out a short survey. This isn't mandatory, it's completely confidential and private, but we'd love to hear back from you. Feedback is really important to us. And there are a couple of short answer questions on this short survey that will let us hear from you in your own words. So please consider filling out that short survey. I'll post a link to that as well in the chat box today before we conclude. I know we're gathered here virtually today, but before I turn the floor over to the panel to get our session started today, I wanted to take a few moments to acknowledge the land and pay respect to the indigenous nations whose homelands were forcibly taken and inhabited. Please take a moment to read this land acknowledgement that was created by 3 former members of our team, Ella and Keely Driscoll and Mr. Sean Bear from the Meskwaki and Winnebago nations, respectively.
Guatsi Hopa. I'm Dave Natsaway from the Pueblo of Laguna. And on my mother and father's side, and then also on my father's side, from Sistan, Wapatan, my family from Fort Belknap and glacier areas up in Montana. So from my Pueblo side, my clans are from my maternal clan is Shawich, Parrot clan, and then from my father's side, my little clan is Quaya, Bear clan from my father's side. I have, I'm here in Albuquerque, and I have lots of relatives that, that I'm close to now. I grew up in Arizona, wasn't so didn't make it over as much as I would wished. And then, when I was 18, I went off to school, and then after that, I was in the Navy for 20 years, and after that, roughly 12 years ago, I moved here to Albuquerque, and was back, home and close to family, and started to get more involved in the culture, the Pueblo culture. I think what took my family to Arizona was it was my grandparents. When they built the railroad, through the Laguna reservation, and with the agreement that the Santa Fe Railroad would hire any Laguna person that wanted to work for the railroad. So that displaced a lot of people. So they set up Laguna colonies along the rail lines in Gallup and Winslow and Barstow, Richmond. So there's Laguna. There were Laguna colonies in all these places, and they were on the rail yards, and they, the Santa Fe, they lived in refurbished boxcars. They turned old boxcars into their homes, and I remember as a kid, hanging out, as we called it, the camp, hanging out at the camp. You couldn't tell these homes were boxcars because a lot of the men were tradesmen. They a lot of them learned carpentry and different types of trades in boarding schools, and they refurbished these boxcars. Like I just remember my grandfather staying with my grandparents. You couldn't even tell. You couldn't tell. I mean, because it was completely remodeled, and they did all the work themselves, you know, and they planted their gardens, and um, that was actually my first, during that time, that was my first introduction to music, because a part of that Santa Fe in Winslow, part of that colony, they established the Santa Fe Indian Band, or the world famous Santa Fe Indian Band. And all my grandparents and my other relatives, they all played as a part of that band. And then along with the traditional music, you know, being exposed in that respect. And for them to be allowed to practice ceremonies in the rail yards in these places, you know, it helped us get in touch with that. It's something that otherwise we would have not had, because we didn't live here in New Mexico, and we're close to the reservation. So, and I know, like, as I meet people that live further and further away from home here, the less and less knowledge there is, you know, because I've met people in Barstow, and I've met people in California that are from the Laguna tribe, but really don't have a lot of knowledge, you know. So it's just one of those things that's, as adults, you know, my brothers and sisters, you know, we have to take upon ourselves so we can teach our kids, you know, these things, and to expose them to it, and to listen to these songs, and what the songs are saying, you know, as best we can. And we always ask questions, you know. So, and that's one of the things I always tell my kids is, you know, if you don't know, ask, you know, just ask a question. So as far as the as with the solstice and the ceremonies that are happening, they're happening now. Like today, out at the Pueblo of San Domingo is their San Domingo feast day. I don't know. So all these pueblos are associated with a patron saint because of the Christianity and the Catholicism that came through. So today, I don't know what their patron saint is for that pueblo, but their feast day is actually today. And we just, you know, all the pueblos during the summertime, you know, they're starting to. It kind of starts in the spring, but into the summer they start having more and more of these ceremonies because of the crops and the planting and the hunting and everything that's going on, and getting ready for winter, you know, in that cycle. So, so I think kind of the direction I wanted to go is just kind of look at it from a worldwide standpoint, and different cultures, and from around the world, and have us make a comparison to the way we do things. And please feel free to jump in and add, you know, express similarities, you know, so, you know, we can all teach each other and learn from each other. So so along with Native American, the cultures here in this North America, and the cultures around the world, you know, they all celebrate a summer solstice, you know, and they do it through song, they do it through dance and prayer, the feasts, part of the harvests. So, you know, as just looking at the word solstice, you know, it's the sun, you know, it celebrates the sun, and the motion of the sun, and that solstice day when it's at its the longest day, because that's the second part of the world. The word means stop. The sun stops. So so with that, the ancients, they noticed, as the summer progressed, that the sun, the direction of the sun stops. It stops moving northward and begins to track towards the south when autumn starts to come around. And they use this movement of the sun and mapping of different methods to map this movement of the sun to as markers as to know when to plant and when to harvest crops. So and I would imagine that we would all be familiar with that. So just different culture, the way different cultures kind of interpret or look at this solstice as a part of life giving. Like when I was in the Navy, I was that was the other thing about me. I was in the Navy for 20 years, so I did travel a lot, and I got to experience a lot of different cultures. But so in Chinese culture, so the yin part is the feminine force, is part of their solstice, the celebrating the earth and celebrating femininity. And I know that for us, for Pueblo cultures, the woman, is the keeper of the house. It's the person that runs the home, the person that raises the children, is held in very, very high respect. So that's when the similarity with that, holding our Mother Earth or women in that high regard. So so just looking through the terminology, looking through the word, like you look at the Greek cultures, Cronus, their Greek god of Cronus is the god of agriculture. So that he's associated with the summer solstice. And as in native cultures, there's different types of dances or different types of entities. I know in our culture, there's specific types of katsuna, the kachina dancers that will come during these times to that we can pray and offer for a good harvest and for the rain, especially, so these crops can grow, and please feel free to jump in any similarities along this. So yeah.
I just wanted to add in that you were talking about, the different kinds of deities and people or dancers that, come along, like cochinas. We have songs that we sing, like to celebrate the coming of the rain, like the Dustu. We sing to the spring frog because we understand that when it rains in the summertime, the spring frogs, they mate and they do this kind of like a chirp, but we call them knee deeps. So like the knee deep dance that we do is to celebrate the coming of the rain, and it's to I guess pay homage or appreciation to the fact that animals are in tandem with our crop circles, or our understanding of planting and harvesting, and knowing those times of activity that they're being active within the world, just being appreciative of that spirit within, the whole entirety of, our milieu of our world, our environment that's going on, is is our appreciation with our acknowledgement of, those animals and their participation within that. So we would honor them. And it was said to me, when I was growing up, that every animal had a dance and every animal had a song. And as I was, taking on the tutelage of these different mentors, they would tell me, the specifics of each one that they could remember, and things that we don't practice anymore, like the raccoon dance. It was outlawed in the 1960s. But being able to ascertain that knowledge of, what it is to be a part of your surroundings, and to give that or pay homage to those creatures or those divine elements within creation, um, allowed us to participate in the world in a different kind of way. So the summer solstice, looking at, the rise and fall of the sun and its location, gives us a more verdant understanding of where we are in the universe and in our world. And we portrayed those in song and dance. And so I just wanted to, I mean, I didn't want to stop your flow there, David. I was like, man, when you had said, they're praying for good harvest, and like my brain went to, do stew, so I just wanted to share that, and I hope it was okay, and if it's okay, I might riff off some other things that just come into my mind.
Yeah, that's I'm glad you brought that up, because I know, like, they have like in the out at Hopi, out at the Hopi Pueblos, they have mixed animal dances. So there is that connection between the harvest, the crops, and the rain and the water and all the animals. So they do have that out at Hopi. I know they have the mixed animals, come out, and they have the dances for that. For us in the winter, as the winter sets in, they have for the hunters, they have deer dances here. And I know, like Yaqui, they have deer dances, Yaqui. And so yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, just to see the connection and the tie between the human and the four-legged. So so like looking at European cultures, Northern and Central European, like the pagan culture. So it's the use of fire, to boost the energy of the sun, and it's for the growing season, which they, we're looking to guarantee a good harvest, and it also, when you add in the plants, a lot of the plants were used to ward off the evil entities or bad spirits, so it's like the herbs and the flowers and the wearing of different types of plants, were used to chase away, protect from evil. And I see that connection in our culture, when we bless with cedar, and we bless with sweet grass and the smudge, and we use that in our prayers, and tobacco, the tobacco, I know that especially like when I was associated with, and we did a web here a couple of years ago, with a lady named Phyllis Hogan that lives up in Flagstaff, and she's a ethnobotanist. She's herbs, and she's traditionally trained, but through Navajo culture, and she taught me a lot about, plants and how to pick plants and, what to use for different things, while I was living in Arizona, so, and then the ashes, so the ashes from these bonfires can be used to protect. And I know, that in our culture, it's the juniper, the juniper ash. They take the little greens from the juniper, and they burn them, and they make the ash, and then we use that to bless ourselves, to protect, from these entities, and in those other cultures, they would use that ash to spread in the garden, so to ensure, to protect their harvest, and to make sure that they have a good, bountiful harvest. So, so as far as the music, we start getting into the types of music and the instruments used. So, as we in our culture, it's the voice, the rattle, and the drum that we use, and that's pretty much, and wind instrument like the flute, and that's a worldwide, all these different indigenous cultures around the world use these same things, and it's because these materials, they come from the earth, and in our Music is Healing presentation that we did, we talked about how humans learn to emulate, to reproduce the sounds of nature in through instruments, and in creating these instruments, they grab materials from the earth that they could use to reproduce these sounds, these earthly sounds, and and then as it evolves, it's that you get the music part of, in the songs, and then the prayers are just as the title of this web, the story is in the music, and all these prayers, all these songs that we sing, they're all part of the prayers and the things we're asking for, and the things we're looking for protection, and for good health, and for asking our mother to continue to provide for us, and then asking to give us the strength to to be good stewards of our mother, so that cycle can continue to happen, so in looking at, I was kind of looking at our own from the Pueblo, Laguna Pueblo, and in talking with, I always get reluctant to just jump into anything, as far as cultural. So I always ask, I always make sure that I go to somebody there and I ask, if it's okay, and so when I went and I asked one of the elders there, my brother, and he's one of the former governors of the Pueblo, and he's one of the main main part of the Kiva. I talked to him about it, and he said there's a lot of things about the ceremonies, that especially like in these times and the solstice and stuff, that are only held in the Pueblo, and they're not to be exposed to outside of the Pueblo. These are things that part of those ceremonies that still remain closed, and held in very, very high and special regard, and right at solstice time, they had the Kachinas came out, and it was they were asking for rain, for the, and especially this summer, it's unusually dry and hot, so but during that time, they were showing me, and I didn't know this, but they were showing me on the horizon as the sun was coming up, on the horizon, looking to the east on the buttes above, or the mesas above the village off in the distance. They were showing me these stacks of rocks that you can see. And that is how they tracked the sun. And I didn't know that. And those stones have been there for since the beginning. They put them there to track the sun. And just this summer was the first time I learned that that's what those were. I could see them off in the distance. I had no idea that that's what that was, but he said they're not anymore, in the old ways. He said they're not necessarily maintained anymore. So a lot of those piles are coming down, and I guess it would just be a matter of taking it into the kiva and then having them go out and put those back together, But those songs, he let me know that those songs and everything, that they're protected, and they stay within the with the people within the village and within the kiva, and so I was kind of hoping I could give an example, but but he assured me that wouldn't be the right thing to do. So but there are other examples, it's not every, and there's a lot of social things that happen that are allowed to be put out. And so along with the songs, Dan, this is where I was gonna ask you. Or yeah, Dan, I was gonna ask you to if you can talk about the Sundance.
I don't know where Dan disappeared to, but
Oh, I see him.
Marshall's here.
I'm still here. I was
Muted.
trying to unmute myself. I'm probably not going to talk much about Sundance. I'll let Doug, if he chooses to, but I do want to add a few more words. Even though the thing that I like about songs, I think the most, is that there is not the words, but it's the vibration. And Beach Boys came up with the song "Good Vibrations," but every movement brings a vibration. The flutter of wings, the movement of a cicada, the movement of grasshoppers, the movement of grass in the wind. And songs are ways of moving vibrations and creating vibrations. In a Lakota way, some of our Olowan that's most sacred doesn't even have words. All it has are vibrations, not just the vibrations of the song, but the vibrations within us in creating the song. And we talk about gravity, but among in our spiritual dimension, we talk of we talk of the vibration of life, the energy of life that connects us. And with song, we're able to create, to call forth a good vibration. We're able to connect with vibration. And I think of the things that I listened to Kiawe and to Dave share. Both of you have so much knowledge and genius. And Dave is an incredible performer, folks, too, even though he's modest, but he's a remarkable musician. But each of us, the energy that we call our life is vibration. And there's people that our vibrations clash. There's people that our vibrations comfort. When I was early in my career as a psychologist, I would try to fix people. That wasn't a necessarily good vibration. It was a bit pompous and way beyond my knowledgeability. But I did learn in time to simply be with people. And in being with people, in the vibrations, when we're in harmony, there's a synchronicity. Boy, I'm throwing a lot of words. I'm really well educated, eh? But anyway, there's a coming together of the vibrations that's healing and restorative. And even though I'm old and I'm fading, and my wife is fading in some ways, spiritually we're not. Spiritually, just like the skin that you see, the skin that any of you young people that are listening to me, my skin is no older than yours. I've just replaced it a lot more times than you have. But we replace all of the cells of our body, and we're constantly creating vibrations. And there's knowledge within us, there's knowledge within the earth, within life. So as Kiawe was speaking, I was reminded of how little we know. I'm grateful for what we do know. I'm so thankful for what we do know. And I'm just so sorry I'm going to die, because I like learning how everything ends. And I'm not sure there is any end in the Hochokothon, in the circle of life. I'm not sure there is an end. So even though we might end in our life, life itself will not end. And how blessed we are to be a part of it for the time that we are a part, or cursed. Maybe you come into life with a dark vibration. Maybe everywhere you go, you create trouble. You bring these negative vibrations. And all I can say about that is, for those that do that, and I'm a really twisted guy. I played football without a helmet. I love you. I love you. When I taught, I always liked the people in the back row, not the suck ups in the front. When I was an executive, I had these people that just put their nose up my bottom. Unbelievable. And they were sycophants, and they would try to tell me what they thought I wanted to hear. I didn't particularly welcome those people. I liked people that believed in the mission. I liked people that were honest and had integrity of their own truth, who could disagree, but as people who cared for each other. Well, I hope this little interlude is helpful, Dave, and it is connecting to Sundance, whether you realize it or not, because Sundance is how that's the beginning of our year. When we come out of that year, that's our new year. And our Sundance, the one that I participate in, is not on the solstice. It's a month later, but it's still acknowledging the solstice. And so we're at the time of diminishing sun. And so I guess we're less sun dancers. Probably all sun dancers go right at the solstice. So that is not the circle with which I participate. I thank you, all of you, for being on this, for listening. Thank you, Dave, for letting me share, Kiawe and Steve. Thank you, relatives, and I look forward to listening some more. Doksha.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about the Sundance. As I said yesterday, a lot of things change. Language changes, but a long time ago, when Sundance first started, it was and they stressed that over that whole. Dan said that's what created that vibration that was sent out. Later, they brought the drum in, and with the Sundance, there was certain songs, when they first come in. There's even the pipe song when loading that pipe. Even the directions, there's directions, and towards the Creator, to Mother Earth, then to ourself. And usually, we'll do everything for everyone and forget ourselves. But we're the seventh direction, so we have to take care of ourselves in order to help others. the entrance song. They're coming in, acknowledging the four directions. Then there's a tree song. Just about everything, even besides Sundance, there was a song for everything. Bringing in the water. In different places, people will acknowledge when they bring that water in. Some people will get on their knees and, acknowledge that water as it comes in. That water is very powerful. It's one of the first medicines that was given to us. And so as you're sun dancing, of course, you're going without water. So that hunger will go away, but that thirst will always be there. And so then if you've danced, sun dance, you've learned to acknowledge the importance of water. Mani, we call it. And that sun dance has a fork. And that fork represents the good and evil. That all lives inside of us. And like Dan says, you could create, problems, which is a bad bad suffering, making somebody suffer. Or there's a good suffering of where you're helping and praying for other people other than yourself. And so like that, in that tree, there's that buffalo gets tied to the north side. And the man gets tied to the south side. And there's also the moon, the stars, and that tree even has a feather. He's a man that gave up his life, so people will live. So we honor him with that eagle feather. And then a long time ago, the men danced on the north side, and the women danced on the south side. And so today, the long time ago that the drum beat was, it was constant. It wasn't so fast. But today that drum beat is pretty fast. And the difference between that today is, all the stuff we're addicted to, energy drinks, pills, drugs, whatever. So that's the reason why that drum beat went fast. And that affects everybody, what they're doing with that drum beat. But like Dan was talking about, if you had good energy and you're pushing that out there, people can feel it. And I hear a good song or something like that, I'll get a chill. And and that makes you feel good. And so that's one of the reasons why they have whistle too. I don't know too much about whistle at a powwow, but that whistle that goes, at the Sundance, you're calling the spirits to come and help. And then on the east gate, that's where all our relatives, they come in. So and when they're when you're loading your pipe and you're sending that pipe out, you're taking all that spiritual energy that you're grabbing in there and you're giving it out. And when that goes out, then you're sending that blessing out to the people. And so, and then if you're standing at the, for myself, we don't use the south to receive that pipe. We use all four of the directions. And each time they'll give you that pipe, they're asking you a question. Are you gonna lie to me? Are you gonna use the pipe against the people? Are you gonna lie to the people? And those are the questions that are asked before they hand you that pipe. And so when you receive that pipe, you said no. And so as adults, that's where we think we're clever, we can fool people, but that pipe keeps us honest. So when you first receive that chinampa, that pipe, they're asking you, are you willing to tell the truth the rest of your life? Are you willing to give your life for this chinampa? And what that's kind of close to what the that vow means, but we all make a vow, and that's what's lacking today is that vow, that we make to each other, that we're gonna be true to each other, mostly help each other and love each other. I'll say that much, and I hope that you chat.
Marshall, did you want to go?
How about now? Can you hear me?
Gotcha.
Wanamaahu, well, I say, can you hear me in Lakota? And remember there's an old cell phone commercial where the guy was walking all over the country saying, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? That's what I think of when I'm in these meetings. Oh, I'm 50 years old now, and I've caught the tail end of elders who were raised by their grandparents when I was a young man. And I was lucky enough to have the fortitude and focus to go out of my way to spend time with them and listen to what they had to say about our ceremonies and our culture. Hold on, I'm getting hot in my vehicle here. I turn on the air conditioner. Sitting out in the Navajo desert with my in-laws. Wait, say hi to my wife. All right. So what was going on in the community that I was growing up in is most of the Indian boys and girls were drinking and smoking dope, and nobody was actively participating with their ceremonies. And because there was no young people helping, there was some, but very little discrimination for light-skinned, green-eyed kids singing at ceremonies. So I was welcomed because all the other kids were following the black road in my community. That's where I found my place. But growing up, participating with the Sundance and the ceremony that we call Uwipi and Lawampi, listening to the elders who participated, I was very lucky to hear what I got to hear and learn what I got to learn. But some of my observations about our songs and our drumbeat, I did see some changes. Can you guys still hear me? Somebody give me a thumbs up. I had to start my car, so I don't know if it disconnected me. Here's an interesting thing. When I was a young man, families would go powwow, rather they were Christian or traditional. And so families and young people my age were learning powwow songs before they were learning ceremony songs. Powwow songs are much faster. They have a faster beat with a loud pitch lead where they're really screaming. And that's everything that's expected with powwow culture, no matter if you're a traditionalist or you call yourself a Christian. But when I was growing up, I really didn't have an interest in powwow, and I was learning our traditional songs first as a young man, and I had nothing but support from our community elders. And they encouraged me to keep on going, and they liked that I had no interest in drinking or smoking pot, and I was always there hauling wood and building the sweat lodges and trying to learn the songs, trying to learn to speak Lakota. And I watched the transition of how our songs were sung. And part of what I noticed is the creation of our ceremony songs published on cassette tapes and vinyl records. And one thing I noticed about our songs is if it was sang a certain way at a community, that was a correct way to sing a song. But then you go 40 miles away to another community, and that would also be a correct way to sing a song. And as you go across Indian country and neighboring reservations, these songs might differ a little bit. But because somebody would publish a song on cassette tape or vinyl record, that became how it is. That was the only way to sing the song, and you're always criticized for singing it differently. I noticed that across Indian country. And I found it was just best to become familiar with as many different versions of songs, because once you start to understand the words and what they mean, they're not wrong from each other. They're just presented differently from community to community. Growing up in Rapid City, South Dakota, was really hard for me to try and wrap my mind around how to speak Lakota, because in Rapid City, I would have Lakota and Dakota speakers, and I would commit to learning a word or a phrase or understanding of how to say something. And the next elder, who would be from a different Sioux reservation, would correct me all over again. So that was always challenging and really interesting. Or I've also found my place, not just keeping songs and learning songs. I found my place as an artist, preserving the how-to of making traditional arts that require a higher level of focus and commitment. So I was always a drum maker. When I was a kid, I learned how to make eagle bone whistles. I learned how to do porcupine quill work. I learned how to make the moccasins. And while I'm doing all of this, I'm listening to my elders tell me stories of what was told to them when they were young, and how the Sundance has changed over the years. I've heard stories where women did not participate with the Sundance in the Sundance Harbor. So how far back are we going to be talking about what's traditional? You know, what I do realize is that times change. Responsibilities and who takes care of the family has changed. It's a historical fact that Native American men have been displaced in their role, their traditional role as protector and provider, the one who brings things home so their family can be healthy. That's the hunter part. And what changed that? You know, the spread of Euro-American conquest and thought and philosophy. It displaced our men, and it was replaced with alcohol, really, it's the beginning of it. And I'm not saying my family was perfect. I've kind of got a 50-50 mix of who was sober and who wasn't, as far as the last few generations. But I was lucky enough to recognize that there's a spirit world, and my ancestors had expectations of me as a Lakota. But the role change of traditional Lakota men responsibilities shifted to women. Our women found an easier path to modernize than our Lakota men did. My grandmas were examples. They were all registered nurses out of Rosebud, South Dakota, went to school in Oklahoma. They came back and found jobs easier than the men in my family. So when it comes time, or when you ask, is women, where's their traditional role in our sun dances? And why are they fully participating with their ceremonies and some ceremonies that men did? It's because they have those responsibilities now. They are fully invested into providing and protecting for our family, and they need that same support. That's one way of looking at it. There's also the staunch traditionalist way of looking at it, which would create more conversation down another avenue. But when I was growing up, I saw a transition of men only in a certain sweat lodge, and then more and more women were coming because these women were single parenting, raising crazy teenagers, and wanting the help of Uipi and Lawampi and Liwangmachipi and Hamlecha. Those are our ceremonies of Sundance and Vision Quest and the house ceremony. And so I learned to not discriminate against women who wanted to come into our ceremonies, as long as they were respectful and properly dressed for the ceremony, and then everything would move forward. So I have lots more to say, but if there's a question, you guys can throw it at me. And but back to the songs, I watched a modernization of our songs, and I think the cassette albums had a part to do with it, and young people learning to sing powwow songs before they learned ceremony songs has a lot to do with that. Okay. Come up with a different question, let me know.
Hey, Marshall, I got a question. So with the women becoming more and more participating or participants, are there songs that are only supposed to be sung by males that women are now singing?
I'm not too sure about that, but I also noticed a mix of songs that are for specific ceremonies now all thrown together in our ceremonies by younger singers who really haven't gone out of their way to understand the words that they are singing, but they could sing real well, and they're singing all night, but I could tell they're not working on their bilingual skills. But part of the not discriminating against women in our ceremonies is because I learned Uipi and participated with Uipi from my mother's auntie. My mother's auntie could hear spirits and make those blue lights float across the room and the lords fly across the room. And she was an old lady. So I would never discriminate against women because I learned the ceremonies from her.
Jump in and say a few things before I gotta go. But one of the things is that not too sure about the Sundance part, but I know as far as the sweat lodge or the NIPI, I don't like to say sweat lodge because what it knew within, enough times you'll find yourself. But they wouldn't go into the nipi. They would go. They said up, they're gonna go in for a little bit, just themselves, get that blessing. One of the things is that you know, we, everything like what the animals do, so like the buffalo, we come from a matriarchal society, so the women are the boss. But when had us switch over, and even with Sundance, Grandpa Cusco, he's the one that brought that back to the people. He went to Washington to bring that back. But when they first came back, they weren't piercing. So when they went back and asked again, and when he brought it back, it pierced. That's when the IRA government came. So all those kind of changed, and now there's women piercing, and you take a look at those things, you know, if you really take a look at it in our ceremonies, there is no right way or wrong way, and so like we're utilizing the language. So we have two brains. We have a left brain, right brain, and what we're doing now is we're taking that left side into the right side. So we're trying to learn the language, and just like he was talking about Christianity. So we're trying to bring that into over here in the ceremonies, but it don't fit. It's like trying to put a circle in a square, it doesn't fit. And so I want to say about that much, and I gotta take off. So you down what chunk na talk sha ke what chunk. Oh,
You guys mind if I speak on some things real quick? Okay. Maui, Hawaii. And I have been privy to ceremonies, changing and right from ceremony to entertainment to forms of chant and acknowledgement of different gods and different particular sects and creation, as well as our participation in what our duty is. But something that I've noticed for all of the cultures that I've been taken into and shown things with is that our music is something like it. To me, it's like smoke. And when I say it's like smoke, I mean that smoke is tangible as we can see it, we can smell it, we can taste it, but we can't touch it. And if we can, we don't feel it when we do. We feel the heat rise off of whatever is burning, but the smoke itself, we do not touch, we do not feel. It is in a plane of existence that is in between. And that when I say that music is like smoke, you can take these in the house with them. Thank you. I'll be in there in a little bit. Okay. So when I say that music is like smoke, it is the in between for our spirituality, our connection, our way of thought, our practice. It is what binds our spirit far past our bodies. It allows us to be on the same frequency, if you will, as Dan was saying, the vibrations, the rhythm, and the connection of how we dance to our music. Like when I speak of gatio, making steps, then the women are taking the shells that are wrapped around their legs and they're beating the ground with their feet. They are making that tangible connection between our ancestors and us. We are dancing in the way that the world turns, because that is the way that life happens, counterclockwise. Our voices are going in the opposite direction because we're paying homage to both directions at the same time. We are singing and lifting up our voices, but they will not go as far as if we do not have those shells shaking from the women's legs and beating of the ground and stomping of the dirt. If the fire is not present within our center, then we are not practicing the way that we should be. We have not made life or created life for the prayers that we're making for other people. And yes, stomp dance, gatio. I apologize, I did not make that clarification. But these ceremonies, there is always one thing that is present, whether it is rhythmic or not. It is song, it is music, and it is partaking of ourselves and transcending ourselves into something else. It is a transformation that we all share. We all breathe in the same time and sing in the same time, or we are dancing in the same measures with each other. It is a connection that breeds what needs to be in this world. And as far removed as some cultures are from their roots, they still have music. And that music is the undertone of the world, at least how I see it and how it was given to me. And I know that you guys may know what it is, but I mean, I usually keep these instruments on me because I don't know when they're needed and when they're not. And I can show them to you because, you know, it's, there's nothing against me showing, you know, what we do or singing excerpts that you guys can hear. And I'm part of a sect of people now that is in a uncharted territory for our time. So I've started bringing out songs that have, the last time that they heard was the last time they were recorded on wax reels. And if you guys know what a wax reel is, it's like it's before vinyl, and we all know how old vinyl is. And so I've been studying these songs for quite some time in our archives, and I have just it's taken me some years to put two of them in place. And the first one was our groundhog dance and the old way of singing with the callbacks for both men and women. And it's more like a trance. When it's sung, time moves differently. And I mean that as in the participants, anyone who's hearing the song has a very hard time agreeing on how much time has passed until we can actually look at a clock. It's very, very interesting. I don't know why that is, but it's just within the dance. The second is a piece of music that is only a fragment of a song, but it was sung on a wax reel, and the only introduction that it gave was, you know, here's one of our tribesmen singing the Indian ball dance. And there's a myriad of Indian ball dances, but the one that I've been trying to seek meaning for all of the words within it, and I've spoke to quite a few elders, and I haven't been able to find someone to fully translate this song yet. So some of the words are a little bit older than at least our English introduction. I can surmise. But I'd like to sing that for you guys today. But before I do that, here's Gautio rattle that was given to me, and his name is the Crane, and it's got popcorn inside of it to give it a sound. And the second one is one of the first flutes I've been gifted, and I used to use this one to woo women, believe it or not. But I use it for meditation, for understanding. I use it for all of these things, and I truly feel that that's what I was doing, in my youth as well, because I enjoyed my time with those people. But either way, I'd like to sing this song for you. It's the Indian ball dance, and it's a man singing it right now, but it's actually supposed to be the woman's part. So I wanted to share this as in comfortable air with the people here today. And it's yo yo hey yo ganewa hey ya yo hey yo ganewa hey ya yo hey yo ganewa hey ya yo hey ya yo kage yo stay nayanolo dohadane kage yo stay nayandola dohadane Hayago Nagiye Dohadane Kageyuste Nayanula Dohadane Dohadane. And so as I sung this, some people stopped talking to me. But I understood that those people have heard that song or has heard a piece of that song, and they did not explicitly think that it should be shared or talked about in public. And I mean to share this because these things used to be shared in public for us, and I know that even though I'm not being told not to share them, when I ask, they say use your heart and your soul. And if you feel that it needs to be shared, then you share it. And right now I see our people are dying, not physically. I mean, I guess physically too, but they're dying. Their spirit is dying. And I know that our words, our songs, our instruments, they liven my spirit up. They make my fire burn brighter and hotter. And when I share them with anyone, I experience their spirit shining too. And so I hope that today that you feel my spirit shine for you. And I want your spirit to shine in return, and I would love to see it. But thank you for letting me speak and share the bits and small pieces that I do know about our traditions and shared understandings of what music is, especially in this time, because the sun greets us every single day. And it is part of our duty as Aniya, we are the people in general, no colors, just the people, to pay homage to that. And our ancestors sung and danced. So thank you.
Hey, I have a observation. So in listening to that song, and then thinking about other songs in our culture, but not only that, the music that I've heard in my travels around the world, there's one mode that stands out. It's the pentatonic mode, major or minor pentatonic mode. And in different cultures, there's, in Western music, you got seven notes in a scale. So they take out 5 of those notes. And for some reason, the human, in speaking about vibrations, the human is attracted to these. I mean, it's something that's natural. I mean, somebody that's not at all musically inclined, if you were to sing that to them and have them repeat, they would always be drawn to those specific pitches. So, and it just so happens that these 5 pitches in different cultures, they represent 5 elements. So water, wood, fire, earth, and metal is the way they perceive these elements. So there's a major pentatonic scale and there's a minor pentatonic scale. And I noticed that, like, Keawe was singing, those notes that he was singing, they outlined the minor pentatonic scale. Now, and I noticed a lot of Native music, like one of the songs that my grandfather made that I've sung here on these webs before, it's the same thing. Is a pentatonic scale, is a pentatonic minor scale. And I noticed this, like, when the very first time I went to Southeast Asia and to Malaysia and Thailand, and I noticed the mallet instruments. When I would listen to these people play mallet instruments, it was the pentatonic scale. Everything was the pentatonic scale. And I would even hear them play like Western music, like pop music, but it would be in that pentatonic mode. And it was funny, they could play a pop tune that we hear on the radio all the time, but it would be using those notes. And I just thought it was funny. But then I started to notice all these different places we went, everybody uses the pentatonic scale. And I think that, I have to imagine that the ancient ones knew this, of those elements and why we're attracted to, and these are the powerful notes that are the vibrations of the earth, and these are the notes that are in sync with us, So I just find it fascinating and very interesting that that this is the thing that stands out. And when you listen to like, if you take just jazz music, improvisation, that is one of the strongest modes that people use in improvisation is a pentatonic scale. It works. It feels, the vibration just feels good with everything, and it's amazing. Me and my son, he's studying now. We talk about these things all the time, and different ways to utilize it, that scale. And so just to kind of tag on to that, one of the things that Marshall was talking about, the right way and the wrong way of music, or the way those songs have evolved. That is, that's one of the things that I try to, that I've talked to my kids when they were in band or they were in music, to get rid of the idea of this person is better than this person, as far as talent or musical talent, I always encourage them to say they're different, it's just done a different way, because I don't like the competition aspect. I don't want them to think that way, and that competition aspect is just, because then you allow yourself to be the recipient of negativity, so it's just different, and we kind of have a joke phrase that we use, when we hear something and somebody cringes, we just look at each other and go, "What, you didn't like that?" So yeah, it's just those things, and as a trained musician, to to be one way and then listen to it another way and have to be accepting of it is very difficult, you know. And and I started to realize this, especially when I started entering into my long-term recovery. You know, all these character flaws that I was working on, you know, that was one of them. You know, because I would go to my kids' school band concerts, and you know, if you've ever been to a young person's band concert, yeah, it kind of hurts sometimes, but you're just accepting. You know, you say, well, this is where they're at. You have to meet. Everybody has to meet each other where they're at. You know, and so just to listen to it and not be judgmental, not to look at another person and use your belief system, you know, or your flaws in your belief system, you know, but just to be accepting of everything as it is, you know, because that's the way it is. I mean, that's the creator said, you know, is allowing you to evolve, allowing you to grow, you know, on your, you know, and giving you the knowledge and letting you make mistakes and all these things. So it's being able to meet that other person where they're at, you know, and I'm talking about musically, you know, and so being able to unconditionally listen, you know, to these changes in music, it was difficult for me at first, you know, but as I became more comfortable, you know, and more accepting and more knowledgeable. And then when I moved here and started to get more into the Pueblo culture and listening to the songs, you know, I recognize it and I feel it. You know, when you listen to a new song, you kind of know what's going on and where it's going to go. Even the song, you know, especially the songs that, you know, the language is one thing, but the vibration is something else, you know. And I remember the first time when I came home from the military and they took me into the kiva to bless me and medicine me, initiate me, you know. After that, they asked me, would you like to help sing at the next feast day? And it was like in a couple of days, you know. So I was like, well, I don't know the songs. And they go, that's okay. That's how we learned them. You just go in and you listen and you learn. And that's how you learn. You'll learn a lot about the language too, you know. So I went in and I just picked up on these patterns, these vibration patterns. And so, you know, by day's end, I knew the melodies of these songs, you know, and because you sing them over and over and over, you know, all day. You know, well, they start the week before, you know, they start with the practicing the week before, but I didn't have that. I went in the day of, and my brother was sitting next to me in the kiva, and they started to sing the song, and he just leans over and he goes, "Here's your one rehearsal. here's the only practice you're gonna get." So so that yeah, the whole thing with the vibration and the connection to everything that the earth provides, you know, and getting rid of that feeling of competition, or, you know, this way is right and this way is wrong. You know, it's just, you know, helps you think that, you know, the music is also a living thing, you know, because like I hear there's a group of my relatives that have a powwow group out in they have a drum group out in Barstow, California, and they sing Laguna songs, but they don't sound like the ceremonial Laguna songs at all. They sound like powwow, you know. So in music, you think of that as genre, you know. It's just the words are there, but it's just put to a different style, I guess, you know. And it's faster. The drum beat is faster, and it's just different, you know. But and I've recorded them, you know, when I've heard them sing and I listen to it, and it's it means the same thing. It just sounds different, you know. And you know, it helps me think like when a young kid is playing and first learning an instrument, it means the same thing. I mean, they're really, it's in their heart. They're really trying, you know. And it means the same thing to like as an accomplished musician and what they're putting out, you know. It's just where they're at the time, you know. So to be all accepting of that in the music is it can be difficult, but you know, just take it as it is. So does anybody want to jump in on that?
I had something when you was talking, like to give an example, because my uncle John, he sings Cherokee words in like a powwow style, and I was trying to find one that was going slow, but even the slow ones are faster than most of our gatio or stomp dance or any of that stuff. Because I was thinking you hit a few points, and I really like that you said the pentatonic scale, because like I don't know anything about music, but like what I know is intuitive, and it's been taught to me by, you know, my uncle John, or, you know, community members, or, you know, uncles, aunties. And one of them, my brain goes to two places. The first one was, you know, John, and then the second was Jess from Oklahoma. When he sings, he does this one really beautiful song, and it always sounds like he's got more swag than I've ever heard anybody sing. But it's in ceremony, and so it's I just have to sing it. It's He ga yo waleha, yo waleha, he ga yo waleha, yo waleha, he ga yo waleha, yo waleha, he ga yo waleha, yo waleha. And like that in my brain sounded real bluesy. And so I wanted to incorporate that into my songs. And he was, and I've heard that song multiple times, but I haven't heard it placed like he did. And it changed the way that I thought of that song being an old song, because some of the songs that we sing aren't even in our language. They're in Mound Builder, which hasn't been spoke for hundreds of years. And so it was a cool new thing happening in my brain of an old song. And I just here, just in this conversation, placed it to what, you know, John was doing. And, you know, he sings one that's, you know, grandfather, you know, like help me grandfather, you know, and it's talking about grandfather passing, or a grandfather or someone older passing. And he's saying, look up, you know, look up and see them dance at the ridge of the sky, and they'll dance forever. And I knew that it was a song that we would sing, you know, to honor somebody, but the context changed when we sung it for my uncle who died of cancer. And I never got to see him dance, but I know he was a dancer. And I've only gotten to see him in ceremony in Sweat Lodge, and, you know, the Aussie, and doctoring people. And so I guess I'm saying I have a multifaceted understanding of relation of time and place within a musical realm. And it changes through nuances and ebbs and flows, and how my memory is jogged within those moments. But I think it's all a celebration and a prayer, uh, in my mind, in music. Because if I'm having a bad day, the first thing that I do is I start singing callback songs. You know, spirit. I'm expecting people to call back, but when they don't, I'll do the callback. And I think it's kind of ridiculous now saying it that I'm doing my own callback songs, but it changes my spirit in the moment, and I can't be angry when I sing those songs. It's an impossibility for me to be angry. It carries so much love and so much connection with our world that I would never disrespect that song or myself while I sing it. And so I just wanted to thank you for that, and share that amongst you guys.
Yeah, that's the power of music and that vibration. When you were singing, I heard it automatically, the pentatonic scale. You were outlining the major pentatonic scale. And that's an old song, you know. It's something that's just not thought about. It's not like I'm going to write a song using the pentatonic scale. It's these notes that just came to them. It's like when the medicine people, when they sing their songs, it was explained to me, they don't know these songs yet. They're given to them at that time, and then they all sing. And then you wonder, how do they all sing the same song? It's because they're all being given that song at that time, very powerful, man. Yeah. So I had, Marshall mentioned that Christianity crossover. So I had a little segment on that. The way native cultures have, because of the influx of Christianity, how natives have synthesized some of that ceremony into Christian, so I guess a type of solstice type of thing. There's a time of year in the liturgical year, so I did actually find an example. There's a community just west of Detroit. There's a native Catholic community that does a synthesis of a Christian and native solstice ceremony as part of the Mass. So, and it's so with Saint Tekakwitha, Kateri Tekakwitha. So there's a Nicholas Black Elk Circle in Livonia, I guess is how you say it, Livonia, Michigan. So that have added a solstice type ceremony in with the Mass that happens at that time. So as as their priest explained it, he explained it as like during the traditional, I guess they call them Ember Days, in the liturgical calendar, is the time between the Pentecost and Trinity Sunday, where the Mass asks God for forgiveness and thanks for the blessings like that God bestows upon us, so and so I guess in earlier times that Mass was for the people that were in agriculture. They were connected to agriculture, which connected with First Nations communities. So I guess that's how that became a part when those First Nations communities were converted to Catholicism. That's how they kind of intertwine those two ceremonies. So they, and this article I found gives an example of what they do during the mass. So it begins, the mass begins as it does with the sign of the cross, but then it goes into the blessings they smudge, and which is representative of, in the Catholic Mass, how they use the incense. So they use a smudge, and they have the sage and tobacco blessings. They bless the congregation with the sage and tobacco, and then they have the opening hymn and a prayer to Saint Kateri, and then they read scripture, and then they have a prayer. They pray 6 times and to the directions that they do: north, south, east, west, the sky, and the earth and the ground. And then they have during that prayer, and they thank God for all creation, and so this song right here, Canticle of the Sun, this is the song that they use during this time. And from Saint Francis, and it thanks the Lord for the different elements, the sun, the moon, the wind, and praise for the crops, and so yeah, Steve, why don't you play a little bit of this, and then this particular example has the words up on there, so you can kind of see what it's talking about, and it's kind of similar to what we pray for in traditional ceremonies. I guess that's why they picked this song. I'm not getting any music. I'm getting the words. Oh, you're muted, Steve.
Can you hear that?
The sun, the bringer of day, he carries the light of the Lord in his rays. The moon and the stars who light up the way unto your throne. The heavens are telling the glory of God, and all creation is shouting for joy. Come dance in the forest, come play in the field.
You want me to keep playing that, Dave, or was that just sample that a little bit?
Well, in the lyrics they talk about the sun,
Yeah.
praising for the sun, and as the lyrics go on, they talk about the crops and talk about the moon, and it's just, I guess the controversy, with the mixture of Christianity, because I know a lot of people in the Pueblo that acknowledge Catholicism, but they won't practice it. They know that they were baptized, into the Catholic Church, but they prefer the traditional way. And then I know lots of people that practice both, and And then I know people that won't acknowledge Catholicism at all, you know, and so, and I can imagine that's probably the same in every Native community, you know. Does anybody have any comments on that?
This is Shirley. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? I'm kind of just listening to everybody, and thank you guys for teaching me today. A lot of what you're saying is like that up here. Traditionally, our women did not sing or drum, and to this day they do not drum, and they sure can sing. There's one of our elders, that one of the few that used to speak the higher language, told us that every 20 years the language changes. So I'm to assume that also do the songs. And that drum, we have at our potlatches, we sing some really sad songs, and it's without a drum for the person that has passed away. And then we sing some songs that are a little bit faster without a drum. And then we bring out the drum and sing the faster songs. And we have like couple songs, group songs, some kind of song where the young men get on one side and the young women get on the other side. And usually they're all single people, and they dance toward each other, and then they go between each other. They go to the other side and they dance back, and they do the same thing, probably about, I don't know, as long as they want. Usually our songs are sung only 3 times, you know, the verses are sung 3 times. The sad songs have a different beat than the faster songs. And if we are in my home village and you're there to honor the person that has passed, and you come from a different village, when we get tired of singing, we're going to sing your song and we're going to mess it up. And that's your sign that it's your turn to sing. We also have it looks like a small paddle, and it's called a gun hawk, and that is held by usually one man, and that man is lifting the gun hawk up or down or certain way, and he's telling us to raise our voices, lower our voices, or to stop. We say the drum synchronizes our heartbeat, so all of our hearts are beating as one. And when I see these young men beating the drum like they're going to break it, like they're angry at it, they're really screwing up people's hearts when they're drumming like that. Because in the way I was taught, it synchronizes our heartbeat. So all of our hearts are beating as one. Some of these songs that we sing, it's like we get into a trance. If it's drummed right and sung right, it's like all of us are moving as one. Our men dance in the middle, our women are on the outside in a circle. our men are in the center with the drum. They're in the center with the gun hawk. And they're supposed to have the loudest voices, but I see some women can really sing too now. So that's changed. A lot of the motions that we make, like this one, like this is a morning. You're supposed to have something in your hand. Usually it's a scarf or moose hide or something, but you're supposed to have something in your hand when you're singing the morning songs, and you're supposed to look down. Look down. Don't be looking at everybody. Because when you do this motion, I was taught that it calls spirits. And when you do this motion and you look down, you're dancing for the person that has passed, and that person comes to mind, and you start crying. When you sing and dance right, things are going to happen. Emotional things. Things in your mind are going to change. And when you keep singing those songs, you're going to start thinking about other people that passed away. You know, might have passed away 20 years ago and you didn't know you missed them that much. They have meaning. The same motion like this and this motion we use to sew skins together. That's another motion. We're not supposed to be sewing at night because that same motion, it calls spirits. And I'm one of those people that I'm all for teaching young people. I don't care what kind of young person, you know, I'm all for teaching them. Because that might make them a better little human being, because maybe they didn't learn these kind of things, these ways of respect. And I don't really care if they're from my culture or your culture. These young people nowadays, they're looking for something. Remember when all of us were looking for something at one point? And I think the Creator put us all out there to assist them in looking for something. Something more than they were doing, something more than they were doing yesterday. And they're like sponges right now. Even those ones that are using whatever, you know, they're looking for something spiritual. I always think of how everything has a meaning. You know, all of you speak your language, all of you know words in your language. Those words don't just mean one thing. They mean more than one thing. I wrote some notes here. In our culture, we have, in our Athabascan way, which is not really who we are, but that's what we go by now. There's 11 different dialects of the language. And from one community to the next, one village to the next, things may differ just a little bit, but not by much. And I know I've been to other communities, not from up here. And I found myself one time in a dance in Central California. And they were using the same motion we use to mourn in the dance that they were doing. And I was encouraged to just get up and dance. If you come around where I am, you're more than welcome to participate in all that we do. We won't turn you away. But you got to go where the men are or the women are. You know, men go with men, women go with women. Because they got different duties during our sad times, even during our happy times. Anyway, I could talk forever, and I want to say Anubasi for listening to me, and hope you guys have an awesome next couple of weeks till we see each other again. Anubasi, and thank you for all of the teaching. And I'm just full of you guys wake something up in me where it makes me think in what I'm doing. Could I be doing more with the community, with my nieces, with my nephews, with people? Can I teach more? Because as all of you know, I'm 300 years old. Anyway, Anubasi, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Shirley, and panel members, and of course our audience. Appreciate you guys sticking around with us. What a great session. I always learn something, and it's the beauty of a panel like this, just this collective knowledge and wisdom and lived experience. So, wow, thank you so much. I have posted a link to the short survey if you get a chance to do that. If not today, we'll reach out to you via email. Take care, everyone. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks.
Anubasi,
Bye, everybody. Have a good weekend.
bye.